Welcome to the Emerging Purpose podcast. This is episode 4. Yes, we are back. We are happening. When I say we, I mean me, Greg Donaldson. So welcome to the episode. Hope you've had a good week. It's been a strange old week for me, to be honest. We're in the middle of deep, dark November. And the last week of November, I have been sick as a dog, feeling really rough. And I had to actually go to bed for the whole weekend, which was actually quite pleasurable, to be honest. I ended up watching Game of Thrones, the first couple of seasons. Yeah, very late to the party. Interestingly, the last two interviewees I've talked about Game of Thrones. And so it was definitely in my psyche as something that I needed to watch because I've heard it's been so good. I don't know why I didn't watch it. I just felt kind of rebellious and also felt like, oh God, there's just too much. I don't know. I just haven't got the time to go there. I haven't got the time to spend watching Game of Thrones. And anyway, so it took for me to get a good head flu cold thing in order to like sit down and really just delve into that world. And I must say, it's pretty brilliant. It's pretty brilliant. The first couple of seasons are a little bit brutal towards women. I don't know what happened at the time. I realized it was 2010 when the first season must have come out. And I was thinking, wow, this is like, there must have been a backlash at the time about how kind of violent it was. Anyway, by season 3, it seems to not particularly have calmed down, but certainly not as much brutality in that area. Anyway, I'm pretty hooked on that now, so I've gone deep into it. What have you been up to? How are you doing? What's going on? Are you enjoying your life? Are you happy? Are you depressed? Are you feeling stressed about Christmas? Oh, God. I tell you what, I've just found this brilliant book, How to Get Things Done. Because I'm one of these people who I just write out my to-do list. And I just have this list of things that I randomly tick off, but I never particularly get it all done. And I was talking to my friend Daisy Campbell. She was telling me about this book, How to Get Things Done. And I thought, okay, all right, I'm going to read it. So I read it. And it turns out there's an app, and I'm not sponsoring this app. I'm not sponsoring this book, but what I'm realizing is that it's such a brilliant way to make things happen in your life, and it's all to do with projects. Anyway, I won't say any more about it. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just keep doing the test run in my life, and I'll let you know how I get on with that. But at the moment, it seems pretty cool. It seems to be a nice way of working with things. So Kate is an actor and theatre producer, and she's also now a singer and songwriter. She was a long-standing member of Ken Campbell and Daisy Campbell's 24-hour epic The Warp, and she was a producer in the company Mycelium that put on a production of Daisy Campbell's Cosmic Trigger back in 2016. So she's definitely a woman of many talents. So Kate, I met 30 years ago at drama college. We went to drama college together, and we've had various times in and out of each other's lives, but we've always been very close. And over the past couple of years, I haven't seen her so much, but there's always a great respect and love for Kate there, and I just thought it'd be really lovely to have her on the podcast. Every now and then I bump into her, like when we're up on the golf course, not playing golf, but walking dogs on the golf course up in Hollingbury Golf Course in Brighton. And I keep bumping into Kate up there recently, and I just said to her, would you like to come and chat to me on my podcast? I'd really love to hear about what you're up to. And I sort of knew what she was up to. She'd been calling herself a dream tender, but I wasn't quite sure what that meant. So we get into that stuff, and We get into how she thinks about creativity and what she's up to creatively. We get into social dreaming and the dreaming matrix. And we just have a really nice conversation, and I think it went really well. So I'm going to start this episode with a little excerpt from a song that she came up with. And at the end of the podcast, I've added a little voice note that she sent me about the background to the song. So throughout the podcast, you're going to hear this song, and then at the end, you'll hear a little bit more information about it. But here we go. Please enjoy the next hour or so. Here is me talking to Kate Alderton.
Keep coming here to this time, to this place. She's dressed in gold, tattooed in hope and grace. She's here to go, she's here to go, she's here to go. We're here to go, we're here to go, we're here to go. Stretching her claws, growling, dancing free. Amused by all the things I've yet to see. The lessons, mirrors, windows, so much light. Reality is falling, hold on tight. We're here to go, we're here to go, we're here to go. She's here to go.
So what have you been up to creatively recently?
So I'm a real mixed bag creatively at the moment. So I am, my long-term mission is to make this piece called The Ancestor, which is, I think, a one-person show about, a woman very like me, encountering for the first time an artist called Leonora Carrington, who's a surrealist artist who I'm really inspired by, who's kind of a sort of haunting muse in my world.
How did you come across her?
She, a very good friend, Alistair Fruish, who is a sort of, he's like a pot of gold of everything. He comes with great offerings of things to investigate.
I know Alistair's brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah, he's amazing. So he sent me a picture of her, and she strangely looked really like me as a young woman. And so he said, how extraordinary, this artist looks like you. And so I started looking at her work and became completely bewitched and enchanted by her. And at the time, she wasn't nearly as in the cultural sphere as she is now. So she'd been quite hidden. And
so this was a kind of rabbit hole or something that she appeared to you through Alistair.
Yeah.
And then you followed down that rabbit hole.
Far down.
Far down. And you've got to this point where it's kind of like, I need to write a one-woman show.
Yeah. So about her life and about how it integrates in lots of people's lives, but particularly in looking at women and wildness and madness and.
Forgive my ignorance.
Yeah.
So who is she?
So Leonora Carrington is she died in 2016, but she was a surrealist artist. One of the people that was a contemporary of Dali and Frida Kahlo and Max Ernst. She was very young at the time, and she emigrated to Mexico, having had a real what's the word for it? Like a breakdown as a very young woman. Where she was taken away to a psychiatric unit and given very strong antipsychotic drugs and against her will, and then escaped that experience and went to Mexico and became this extraordinarily prolific surrealist artist and was very well known over there. But what I'm really interested in terms of her work, you know, she's magic realism and surrealism. She worked a lot with dream. Is would she have been sent as a young woman to a place like that now? So I'm interested in how women and wildness was mistaken for or chosen to be seen through the lens of madness.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's the problem we sort of face in society, isn't it? In terms of like, what do we do with the people that are having spiritual emergency?
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting. There's a guy called Dr. Tim Reed who is I've heard talk about, you know, the sort of idea that actually these asylums that used to exist in the country were there for people to go and have these kind of experiences and not actually necessarily be medicated or drugged, or they were just given asylum in these kind of beautiful manor houses to go and be held safely. You know, and actually, so it's a kind of question for society, isn't it? Because we have like these psych wards that are, put them in there and medicate them up, and that's kind of all we can do. But anyway, wow.
It's you know, that idea of, you know, is it okay to be wild? Is it okay to go mad? You know, from a wider perspective, from an ecological and climate perspective,
Yeah.
I'm interested in the sort of intersection between what happens when we become afraid of our wildness, both in our inner worlds, in our, you know, our wild psyches, our wild bodies, the hair on our bodies, particularly for women.
So
is,
the
is still a
animalistic
thing.
side of ourselves. Yeah.
And how does that reflect in the outer world? You know, where we start to try and contain and tame nature.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested
Sanitize.
what that does to our planet when we don't let the wildness in, when we don't respect it.
What does it do to our planet?
Well, it's not going well.
No, it's not looking good, is it?
We're in a difficult state, and while we try and homogenise and contain crops and tame, and not be in relationship with the wildness of the living planet that we're on.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
So how to make that into a one-woman show? I have no idea.
How do you do it?
But I'm slowly pulling pieces of that puzzle together, and I'm working a bit with Jeremy Stockwell, who's an amazing theatre maker, works very visually. I think very visually.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking about making theatre, and worked with Daisy on some script
Daisy Campbell.
structure, who's been really instrumental in helping me kind of order some of the wild chaos of the things that I'd like to try and communicate through the piece. So
what's your process? I mean, you've explained a bit of it there, but it's kind of like, so there's, what do you do? Just in terms of writing, do you sit down and write, or do you go and act something, or what?
Yes.
Yes, all of those things.
I'm really discovering my process, because I haven't made my own piece of work before. So I'm really exploring what works, and what I'm noticing is that I think visually. I don't have an internal monologue, so I don't have a voice in my head.
You don't?
No.
I was talking to someone about that yesterday, actually. There's what's the percent? Someone said there's like a sort of 50-50 percentage of people who don't. But I was like, what? Are you absolutely joking? I
was astonished to find out last year that people do. You know, I just read an article by someone on Twitter saying, I've just found out that there are people that don't have an internal monologue, and I looked at that and thought, people have an internal monologue? What?
So you don't have
nothing.
That voice in your head that is commentating on everything?
Nothing.
Oh my God, that must be a relief. Well, you don't know anything different.
Well, it's a sort
Do you still have an internal critic?
Oh, yeah.
So how does it turn up, though? Like in pictures?
Somatically, or in pictures, or like a feeling of... Yeah,
like you've done something wrong?
Yeah, they're rather than, a script that's running, it's like a whole pile of feeling.
Oh my God. That's quite incredible to think about. I can't quite conceive it, because I suppose it's the other way around for you. Like, why? How would it be to have a voice in your head all the time?
I can't imagine how that would be.
Yeah.
I think certainly in some of the work that I do, it's a real gift, because if I'm doing listening, I do listening work in a couple of different ways, and it means there isn't a.
You
I
can
don't
listen.
have a chatter or a planner. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, I have distracting feelings and all sorts of things going on. I'm not. It doesn't make me in a you know, like any sort of
Clear.
total clear channel. But it definitely, I think it helps with that part of my working practice.
Yeah, so you can kind of get out of your own way and then want to listen. What are the listening things you do?
So the two things I'm doing at the moment. So I work. I'm a real sort of hodgepodge worker.
Yeah,
so,
this is interesting. That's why I'm interested, because it's, you know, this is about kind of how creative process and passion and eros and what motivates us, and so I'm getting the sense already that there's a kind of, I don't know, like I sort of see I guess pollination, bees, and going, you know, in terms of your life, something about like there's many flowers.
Oh, I like that. That's a good.
It's a good
picture.
image, isn't it?
That's
It's not
good. Yeah, that's a very active image. I like that. Yeah, there's lots of flowers, but they're definitely a lot. They're all linked, I think.
Okay.
I think they all have quite a.
They're in the same
thread.
garden.
They're in the same garden, or they've certainly got the same telos, or if that is that the right word.
Yes.
They've got some. Yeah.
They're all growing towards something similar.
Yeah. So one of the things I do is I work as a facilitator for mostly NHS people working in the palliative sector, and I facilitate advanced communication skills training. And so we do a lot of one-to-one work before the courses we run, really working through the challenges that people in that field are.
Yeah, big challenges and
Huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
huge. And working with things like Nancy Klein. I don't know if you've come
Nancy
across
Klein,
her
no.
work. So her practice is, she wrote a book called Time to Think.
All right.
So one of my favourite quotes of hers is, the most valuable thing we can offer each other is the space to think. And her second book is called The Promise That Changed the World. I Won't Interrupt You. Which I think is it's really simple, but it's actually a really radical practice to just listen.
It really is. It's it's an interesting one, because very recently, you know, my own psychotherapy practice, I actually got better at. I need to interrupt you, because otherwise you're just going to sit here and tell me your story, and you're going to carry on telling me your same story. But I guess it's a different, slightly different lens.
Yeah.
In terms of what you're doing. Anyway, yeah.
Well,
so it's interesting.
I think, from a perspective, of course, it's really important to eventually and ask people. She calls them incisive questions, so questions that really help people think.
Right.
So what if you weren't thinking that this would happen, what might you decide to do? So it's it's not never interrupting. Although she does have a practice where she just sits and says, "And what else are you thinking?
And what else? And what else?" So it's kind of a bit like, this is a bit jumping around a bit, but it's like the Meisner technique, maybe in acting, where you sort of just say the same thing, say the same thing, say the same line, and just keep noticing the truth.
Yeah.
How it kind of comes through in each time.
And reaching deeper levels of, in that, I'm always, somewhere in the back of my somatic pictorial mind, I'm often connecting everything back to dreams. But, reaching deeper levels by continuing to be curious and excavating, and not just assuming people have reached the edge of their thinking because they've answered the first layer of questions.
Right.
So that's so with the people that work in healthcare that I work with in that way, it's a really lovely practice to be in.
Amazing. Yeah, because I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? It's like everything in healthcare must be like sort of time and money, but actually to take that space and kind of go and what else, and what else, and kind of give either healthcare practitioners that time to tune into their own experience of what they're offering, but also for them to be able to think about how their communications are sort of landing. Yeah. Rather than just them getting on with their job, doing their thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're kind of working with people to explore how they can be with people who are dying or newly diagnosed, or are relatives of people that are in real dire straits, to be able to be with that uncertainty, with the discomfort of the feelings that come with all of those things without feeling like they need or can or have to fix everything, because sometimes that can't, how people are feeling, it can't be solved, but it
or
can
fixed.
be heard.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that I find really extraordinary, is when you get into that field where you just have the capacity to be with what is in the room between two people.
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly transformative and really...
Absolutely, I totally agree. I mean, that's, the how I see psychotherapy. Have you seen this Netflix thing recently, Stutz?
No.
That's really interesting. Jonah Hill makes a documentary about his therapist, and his therapist is brilliant because he basically has this approach that kind of, I don't know, it sort of gets under the usual idea of psychotherapy being someone who just sits that you just come and dump your shit on someone. You know what I mean? Actually, it's like, no, this is an interactive process, but let's just agree that it's not about being fixed up front. That, like, one of the, the one sort of thing that he puts out front is like, we all have pain, we all have uncertainty, and we all have to continually work. So if you can get on board with that, then actually it's more about like how you conceive your life rather than this place that you're heading. That's going to be that when I get this and when I get that, I'll be okay. It's like, no, that's bullshit. So
Amazing.
anyway,
Stutz.
Yeah, it's really
I
interesting.
will dive in.
And it goes quite meta. But anyway, so you do that work, and then you were saying that it's sort of everything that you do at the moment leads you back to the dreaming. So what do you mean by that?
I suppose
what do you do with dreaming?
So what I was thinking about when I said that, I think, was like, what was I thinking? Let me just see if I can follow my own thread with no internal monologue. This is the beauty of having no internal monologue. I sort of have to catch it from somewhere out in the universe, a bit like trying to catch a dream.
Like an image.
So that's a good word for me to land on. So I think when we were talking about... I'm noticing I've got my eyes closed now because I'm talking about dreaming. When we were talking about, getting to different layers of thinking by asking what else, not assuming people have reached the edge of their thinking.
Yes.
That reminded me that that's what I love most about a particular way of working with dreams, where you don't settle. If you have a dream image or a dream person, you don't settle on a particular interpretation. So you don't necessarily say, that's the sea, and so that's my emotion. So that's it. That's nicely tied up. I've done that.
I went to the dentist, and that must mean I'm worried about money.
Yeah. Because it has a kind of it has a calcifying effect it can do on a dream or an image.
Yep.
So you don't go further into investigating what that might hold.
Yeah, beautiful. So let's just back up a little bit.
Yeah.
How did you get into dreams? What's your interest in? Where was your interest in dreams sparked?
That's so big. It all started a long, long time ago. I mean, I think I've always been a dream. I've always had a very, very deep, rich, active dream life.
Have you?
Like since forever, since
Really?
I was really little. I had massive dreams when I was really little, huge dreams that I can still feel and
Really?
see as if they happened yesterday. So I suppose they've always been an ally as I've walked through life,
Yeah.
dreamed through life.
She's here to go. She's here to go. She's here to go. We're here to go. We're here to go. We're here to go. Stretching her claws, growling, dancing free. Amused by all the things I've yet to see.
I can't. I can't quite contextualize the whole
Right.
dream.
So,
But
so like in terms of a journey, it's like, yeah, I'm a human being. I've always dreamed.
Yeah,
And I've kind of always found, you've always found dreams important in some way.
yeah, I
Like,
think I've always found
What the hell is
dreams.
this world that opens up when we go to sleep?
Yeah.
Like, and, you know,
And I think in my 20s, you know, when we've known each other for a very long
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
and in my 20s, you know, I started to have some really huge experiences around dreaming things that having the precognitive dreaming experiences that I just couldn't explain. That some of them were very humdrum,
yeah.
and some of them were quite overwhelmingly accurate in really big ways.
Really?
With people who died who I didn't really know, who
Like
then sort of turned
precognition.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that really opened up my eyes to, or certainly really sparked my curiosity to think, you know, what is this? What is that space? What is actually happening? Is that this seems to be more than just my kind of local field of internal processing and my own psyche and whatever it is that's going on in my day to day, because it felt much wider and.
Do you mean in terms of like like Jung would call the collective unconscious?
Yeah.
So there's
yeah.
like something bigger that we're all attached to in
Yeah.
some way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my experiences with some of the dreams I had in my 20s certainly gave me a sense of a wider map that I seem to be accessing at night time.
Yeah.
So I've explored it in lots of different ways, but I suppose maybe if I talk a bit about shall I talk a bit about where I'm at now?
Where you're at now?
with
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. What do you?
Yeah.
How do you work with? Do you work? I mean, you work with dreams.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose I think I'm a kind of a passionate enthusiast rather than it's not work.
Well, it's not work. Yeah.
It's not
Sorry,
work like you do work at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not work like my work with the NHS at the
Something
moment.
you love.
It's something that I love and something that I can't put down really.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
One of the ways is working in one-to-one sessions with a practice called dream tending.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dream
I don't know
tending.
if you've heard of that.
Well, I've only heard of it because I texted you yesterday. I mean, I have heard, I've heard you talk about it before, but I've never sort of gone down the rabbit hole because I kind of thought, wow, that all sounds very interesting, but it's never hooked me completely.
Yes, yeah.
And that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you
Yeah,
on this, because I
yeah.
was kind of thinking this would be a really good opportunity. Find out, what are you up to? So, so I know that you use that phrase, dream tending, and that's much more about not interpreting and actually, I mean, it sounds more like we're going back to a sort of garden reference. It's sort of like, I'm in the garden of dreams. What are we doing here?
So it's there is an element of interpretation in a dream tending session. So it's not to negate the value of interpretation and association and personal relationship with dream in terms of your own psyche and what's going on in your own world, because that's really true and valuable and real and helpful.
Yeah.
But I think what the difference between dream tending practices and dream analysis in a more traditional way is that we're working with the idea that the dreams have their own aliveness, that they are unique, and the symbols, the animals, the landscapes, the visitors, the objects that are in that dream landscape that might turn up for you every night or some nights have their own innate intelligence. They have their own imaginal gifts.
Amazing.
And when we work exploring dreams, we're working with the idea that they didn't just happen then, that they're actually alive and happening now. So we might open up a dream, and a bit, I suppose, a bit similar to the practice of active imagination, maybe in some ways, although I haven't experienced it very much.
So like a sort of, you could have, it's not just about like what I dream at night. There's in my unconscious, or what's coming from my unconscious. There's something about like, this is a kind of world that is open to us at all times.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it's not just this nighttime thing.
Yeah, so it's a world that we can, in a dream tending session, we might open up a dream and start to explore who's visiting. If C is visiting, or Tiger is visiting, or small girl or whatever is visiting, what makes that C unique and particular, and what might that C or Tiger or whatever, what might its innate intelligence want to communicate to us,
Yeah.
rather than what do I think that means in
Yeah, so you're-
relationship to my journey.
Yeah, sure. So it's not like people coming to you to kind of go, what do you think this means? Like,
Yeah.
I had a dream about the sea and blah,
Yeah,
blah,
we
blah.
ask C.
You asked, right.
So it's there's a lot of, we get into relationship
Yeah,
with the landscape and the content of the dream, and find out what that innate imaginal intelligence might be offering us, speaking to us, speaking through us in a way that makes it sometimes easier to go further than our own capacity to decide what it means.
yes.
And so we take ourselves out of the center of the dream. So it's a less individualistic perspective, and in terms of the wider, our wider relationship with the planet, I think that's really, really valuable.
I think that's really valuable. It's so amazing that you talk about. I've been reading a book, Waking Dreams, and there's something similar in what you're saying about how, when kind of Freud came up with this idea, like sort of metaphor of, the human being's a little bit like a steam train, like with this sort of mechanical thing, that actually all the parts within that can be fixed by this kind of egoic self that is kind of right. It's a bit like colonization of the self, like going out into the world and colonizing all these parts and saying, no, I'm right, rather than, and what I'm hearing you say is like, we take ourselves, that part of ourselves out, so it's all kind of equal. There's a democracy, an internal democracy, which sounds much more alive, doesn't it? Rather than going out and colonizing these parts, make them better or something.
Yeah, and I think we need that. I certainly feel like our the model of individualistic behavior and way of walking through the world, and imagining that the human experience on the planet has more value and more importance than the non-human world.
Yeah. That's kind of
and
part of why we're in that trouble, right?
Yeah.
In this trouble.
So there's something about absolutely that sort of that balance of internal landscape, and then from a much thinking about it in a much more, oh God, there's a massive seagull on your window.
Oh yeah, that's
Hello, none other than human world.
That's my little visitor that comes.
So we would say, if this was a dream, we'd really think, seagulls visiting.
Yeah.
Right now, what might seagull have to say?
You'll probably hear him in a minute. He'll say it very loudly.
We're listening.
But yeah, I know what you mean. It's so taking notice, kind of like the psychopathology of everyday life. It's sort of a bit like, I always go back to like psychotherapy references, because that's kind of where my focus is. But it's like the sort of Jung thing, where it's like you're sitting talking to a patient, and then a bird flies into the window. And it's like, well, it's not just a random thing. There's we can say there's a connection to that. What's that the sort of environment includes or reflects what's going on internally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I suppose one of the really one of the things I love or have experienced a lot of surprising opening in as when I'm working with other people on the dreams they bring, or the dreams that bring them, because they do. I always say, what dream brings you here is always the question, rather than, because the dreams tend to choose. When people say, I don't know what dream shall I bring, I just say, well, you'll know.
Yeah, you'll know.
Because it will let you know. But sometimes what happens is we'll end up exploring, like, how in dreams you might have a very a very obvious figure in front of you, or a very obvious mountain or volcano or sea, whatever. And then there's there are peripheral people or peripheral animals, or sometimes what will happen is we'll just begin to explore what's going on there. And sometimes what comes through those visitors is much more profound than what comes through the ones that we face.
The sort of obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
So-
is a bit like life, I guess.
Which is a
isn't
bit
it?
like life.
Yeah. It's like the stuff that we keep in the periphery that we don't
Yeah.
particularly want to look at, but we know it's there.
So it's becoming really curious and widening awareness to what's that imaginal space is holding. And
Yeah. Wow. What a process. So, I mean, so in terms of like what that looks like, the dream brings someone.
the dream will bring someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's usually someone who's kind of like searched you out, or they know what you're up to, or
At the moment, because I'm quite recently trained in,
Yeah.
and there's, I could train, and I really want to, because there's lots of different
it's lovely being a
levels.
student, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, I love it.
So at the moment, I've been, offering it as a way to get my practice.
Who did you train with?
So I trained with there's a guy called Stephen Eisenstadt.
Oh right, oh yeah.
And he is he was the founder of Pacifica Graduate Institute with James Hillman. So he's of that lineage of kind of Hillman and Jung and
Yeah.
Marion Woodman. So lots of him. No,
I don't know Marion Woodman.
So she's very.
Oh, is she a Jungian analyst as well? Or?
She's a Jungian, and she's
Yeah.
very, her passion and her telos is very much towards, Jungian, but also the body, the body in individuation, and particularly how dreams work through the body. So the somatics of dreaming.
Wow.
And so that's his kind of.
Yeah. So you've done this training with him. Stephen,
Yeah.
what's his name?
Stephen Eisenstadt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see. So and so part of what you do is then you kind of, as a student of that, then you go and find people, or they find you.
Yeah, to practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, to practice with. So that's where I'm at the moment, and then there's a kind of there's another layer of training in the autumn,
Is there?
which I would love, which goes even deeper.
What is it?
So it's really, so Stephen Eisenstadt talks, I don't think he invented the term, but he talks about, we have our unconscious, the collective unconscious. He talks about the world unconscious. So this is the idea that perhaps, when we're dreaming about the land, when we're dreaming about the mountains or the sea or the animals, that actually perhaps what's happening, so it's working with this sort of supposing that it's dreaming us.
Oh, lovely.
That as fellow inhabitants of the planet, that that's the way the landscape communicates to us, especially in this time of great ecological change.
I mean, that seems much more in line with, how the sort of ancients would probably tune into that. It's that kind of thing. It reminds me of the sort of thing, like the Aboriginals sort of, conceiving it as like, this is the dream time. We are in part of the dream time. And actually, again, the egoic thing is to sort of say, oh no, we're the centre of it all, and then that kind of happens on the side.
Yeah.
Rather than, we're all part of this thing. And actually, it's like also, maybe a bit off topic, but it's like that kind of idea that, we have a soul. And actually, rather than, no, the soul kind of has us. Like the soul is this big thing, and then there's like this tiny nut of us, our physical thing, so we're kind of contained within that. I quite like that idea.
It's such a relief, that thought. I think both of those thoughts, I feel a real sense of relief when I hear or sense that widening, wider picture.
Yeah.
That
What's the
when-
relief for you in that?
That it's held, and that there's a sense of interconnectivity and a largeness.
Right.
That it's, because actually, working from an individualistic point of view is quite lonely, and and feels quite like there's a lot of directional think I'm sort of slightly going to start talking rubbish now.
No, well, this is part of it,
Yeah,
isn't it? It's
what is it?
We don't know where we're going, but
Yeah, it's
I sort of get the sense that what you're trying to say is like
Yeah.
there's a male aspect, which is like linear, or we could look at it through the lens of feminine, masculine, and the masculine is like, I have an idea where I'm going, that is it, and I will go on my mission. Whereas the feminine is like, let's just be the sea and kind of, like not know our direction and.
but also know that we're
We
that
know
there's
that
a
we're connected
great
on a
sense
larger-
of connectivity.
Yeah.
And so when I think about the landscape, whether it's through dreaming or through waking world being part of our relation and our, part of our ancestry and part of our family, that's what brings a great sense of relief, that we're not just on the planet, we're of it and with it, and
rather than, oh my god, it's just a
Yeah.
tiny little me
Yeah.
who's got to like
And if
make
it-
things happen.
And if it's communicating through us, and whether that's through somatic experiencing when you're out in nature, or whether that's through dreams and it comes in dreams, expressing what it needs, what it wants, where it might want you to go to take, to make dream activism practices happen, but that
Dream activism.
yes.
Yes, that sounds cool. So listening, again, it sort of comes back to the listening, doesn't it? It's like, what am I being asked? Can I listen? Will I take action?
Distance mirrors, windows, so much light. Reality is falling, hold on tight. We hit gold, we hit gold, we hit gold. She's here to go, she's here to go, she's here to go. She's a map in all directions at the center of the room. She's in the hall of elders, facing up a storm, striding on the timelines. You only have to look, unabashed and fierce, her heart's an open book. She's here to go, she's here to go, she's here to go. We here to go, we here to go, we here to go. Under the trees beneath him.
Yeah.
And I think we've become really rational
Yeah.
in the Western world,
Yeah.
and dreams and listening to dreams and having that capacity to take them seriously and lightly enough to take action and to hear what they say has become a kind of
Don't be a weirdo.
closed door.
Yeah.
This crossing back and forth between the dream state and the waking world used to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
And the same with the psychedelic world,
Yeah,
what we,
yeah.
how Jennifer Dumpert, who's an amazing author who wrote a book called Liminal Dreaming,
Mm-hmm.
uses this term interdimensional smuggling, which is
What does that mean?
So for me, it's that idea of kind of crossing back and forth between the waking and the dreaming worlds, because you can bring stuff through that dreaming world into the waking world, but equally you can use the waking world to intentionally incubate dreams and ask the dream space for answers, wisdom, what that you can kind of seed the dreaming space with intentional dreaming.
I see what you mean. So kind of the same, when you say psychedelics, you mean like the same thing in terms of setting up an intention, a possible intention, or listening for a certain message. I love that. Smuggling.
She calls it, she refers to it as interdimensional smuggling.
Right. I mean, I kind of, again, if I relate that to psychotherapy, I think that's what we're all doing, because we've got this kind of conscious us and then the unconscious us. And actually all that stuff in the unconscious that's trying to emerge, but this conscious part of us is like going, no, actually, no, I would rather not. I'd rather not have that in my consciousness. In some ways we need to irrigate. So I kind of often see it as like a a castle, you know, and we're standing on the other side of the castle, kind of going, right, I need to work out how to smuggle some of this unconscious material over without the shame guards noticing, because as soon as the shame guards notice, they'll just like push it all back down inside and go, no, back to normal, please. And I suppose that also relates to what you're saying about like the conscious the conscious reality that we live in is very rational, coming back to that thing you're saying about rational. So it's like, come on now, don't be weird, let's all be normal and rational, and that's why we end up in this sort of sanitized kind of vision of the world, like just buying new trainers and brown food.
Yeah. Quite like brown food.
Well, you know, like beige food, just
Yeah.
processed,
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean?
Because it's risky, you know. I think that, you know, encountering the other and encountering uncertainty and things that we can't pin meaning onto. It feels, I think, can feel really risky.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know,
but that's the point, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So does it feel so how do you hang out there? And I mean, I guess you have to sort of find a way to hang out on the edge of that.
Of the
Sort of the mystical, unknown.
Well, I did a little bit of training with Formica Colorado, who is one of the dreaming teachers, mentors at Damanhur, which is an eco-spiritual, time-travelling, some would say, community in Italy.
Oh my God! I mean, I'll put links to Damanhur. I mean, because we could do another whole podcast
We could
about
do a whole
just them.
podcast.
But that is an incredible place. The seventh wonder of the world.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
temples in a mountain.
And built from dream. So you know, they dug this. The story goes they dug this, began to dig with their hands in the earth because what was his name?
Alberto
had a dream that they needed to build temples into the side of an Italian mountain, and so they just stuck their hands in the soil and started to dig.
Yeah.
And that was a dream. And now it is a cathedral-sized hidden temple in the middle of an Italian mountain.
Yeah.
And so they're hugely influenced by dream.
Are they? Yeah.
And she talked a lot about Formica
Oh,
Colorado,
Formica, yeah.
who's the dreaming mentor there, who learnt from Alberto. She talks a lot about the fracture line between waking and dreaming.
Oh.
You know, that they use that crossing point between the two states.
Yeah.
Whether it's dreaming and waking, or, you know, psychedelics and waking, or
conscious, unconscious.
Yeah, those states, that it used to be easier to cross back and forth, and it used to be very, in lots of different cultures, usual to cross back and forth. But there's this fracture line between the two, and it's become harder to do that, and less usual, especially in the Western world.
Yeah. So consensus reality and non-consensus reality is like big lines drawn.
Yeah.
Actually, let's just well, it always amazes me actually when you think about how long the concept of the unconscious has been around in the Western world. It's not that long. You know what I mean? Sort of Freud and Jung coming up with this thing just over 100 years ago. And it's like, and they were, you know, it's like witchcraft. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But actually, you look back thousands of years, and it's there in our history, in our DNA. And it's actually just something we're reclaiming, right? Rather than,
And that's I think that's her view on it, which I tend to agree with, is that can be the role, or certainly the placeholders that stand on the fracture line are often artists, shaman, people that take psychedelics, people that have spiritual breakthroughs. Yeah. You know, that's where people that have the capacity to stand on that fracture line and communicate with both sides.
Absolutely.
Are the ones that make it possible to keep doing that.
Yeah.
But it's not always easy.
Well, no, and it comes back to what you were talking about at the beginning about Leonora Carrington.
Absolutely.
And that sort of idea that, you know, how do you have a spiritual emergency and allow that to be there and be held within it, and also then let come through what needs to come through. You know, I suppose in these tribal villages, not to sort of like just say, oh, all the tribe people have it right or whatever, but there's certain things about what they believe and the way they live we could definitely learn from in terms of like, yeah, someone has what we would call a psychotic break or a spiritual emergency, and it's like, oh, you've been called by the gods or by the whatever. We'll help you listen to that.
And I think that's, you know, and I hear what you're saying about, you know, it's easy to keep saying, you know, that they had it right back then, but I think that's really the work that you do and have done and are doing around integration and community. That is what that work is, isn't it? Is that, you know, the similarity between those two things is it's hard to do it on your own. We need a community, whether it's a tribe,
connection,
or an integration circle, or a dream circle. It's much harder to do those things on your own, to have an isolated experience.
So that leads us into the dream matrix.
Yes.
Because that's something else that I noticed that you sent me around, or that's on your website, around this community dreaming or collective dreaming,
social dreaming.
Wow, tell us a bit about that.
So obviously, you know, again, thinking about, you know, ancient peoples and not so ancient peoples, sharing dreams in community isn't new, and was often used as a way to pull collective wisdom about what might be coming, you know, in tribes and whatever. But social dreaming particularly is a way of working with dreams in community where you meet together. And again, you were working with the idea that that the dreams are there in their own right.
Right. So you, in terms of what it looks like, a few people, a group of people, all meet together in the same physical space.
Yeah, it can be physical space, or it works really well online as well. So
right.
During the pandemic, I had to do that. Well,
this is it, isn't it? I suppose it's like if you look at quantum physics, you can fold time and space, so you can all be there together, whether we're together or you're on the other side of the world. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
So a group of people come together, and they so in a social dreaming matrix, you share dreams in a completely non-interpretative way. So the idea is that you bring the dream, and the dream is there in its own right, and it's a space for dreams to speak to dreams. Ooh. So I might share a dream, and then you might share another dream, and someone else might share a dream, and then we start to share associations to the dreams. So my dream ceases for that period of time. You know, my dream about the sea is coming up a lot today because I had a big dream about the sea last night.
Did you?
So, you know, my dream about the sea might mean something extremely specific for me in my own process, but in the process of a matrix, in that space, we associate it to it all together. So it has a multiplicity of meaning. And then we start to look at the links and patterns that get created by these dreams together. So they create a kind of lattice work, a patchwork of meaning and associations, and might remind someone of a film about the sea. And slowly you get this, you get like a kind of a patchwork of meaning, and then spend some time at the end of an hour of just associating and sharing dreams and associating and sharing dreams, looking at what is that we've all created.
Right. Right. So this collective thing that we've created this big thing here, or we've described and felt into what this thing is. Now we look at it and kind of be curious about it.
So it's a kind of, you know, it's called I suppose it's called a sense-making session in some terms, and it has this way of Gordon. I think he's called Anderson. I apologise if I've forgotten his last name, because I think he's called Gordon Anderson, who's created the idea of social dreaming. He calls what happens often as the unthought known. That the dreams tend to kind of they draw out of everybody's collective and personal unconscious these whispers on the edges of our collective thinking, which we might not be able to communicate rationally in conversation, but by speaking in the poetic language of dream and association, we can sometimes bring through what's on the very outer edges of our collective thinking processes. So in terms of finding new ways of thinking about solutions, I'm thinking about climate change a lot at the moment, or even in a system or a workplace or a group of people, it will bring through the quieter voices that can speak through dream but might not speak through rational thought. So it's an amazing way of
Yeah, I mean, again, I suppose that there's something about like how do you? I kind of see what you're, or understand what you're saying as a kind of a facilitator in terms of the what did you call it, interdimensional smuggling, kind of like how do you? I sort of imagine that your acting background helps with that, like the imaginal bit, to be able to like trust to be in the imaginal space and that be. I mean, it's quite shamanistic, really, isn't it? If you think about it, it's like you let in the imaginal realm and the dream realm and the way that you express that kind of all be okay, all be accepted, all be brought through, and none of it sort of judged or denied or kind of rationalized and interpreted, perhaps.
I think it's such a relief not to be, I think for dreams, if we imagine that dreams are their own beings.
Yeah.
Which I really do.
Lovely
I hold that
way to
so
think about
dearly
it.
that
Yeah.
they are their own thing. I think there is such relief in not interpreting and pinning meaning. I think I've said that already today, but
but it's an important point to make, isn't it? I mean, I suppose from my own experience, I don't necessarily, and then maybe this is because I'm kind of caught in the rational side of it, or I just sort of decided that that they're not that important, or some things happened where I kind of wake up and I know that I've been dreaming, but I don't hold on to it, so I'm very quickly into my sort of rational world, I guess, and there's been times when I sort of kept a notebook by my bed and had the intention of remembering, and it worked. There's more things come, but then I suppose I've come much more from that place of like, well, I wonder what that meant, and who. Oh, that was obviously me in the dream feeling worried about this and da da da, and then it sort of, I think, like you say, calcifies it, and then there's nowhere to go with it.
Yeah.
So there doesn't seem much point in doing it the next night or the next night. Whereas what I'm taking from what you're saying is like, they are their own being and their own messengers, and maybe like we just need to take out our own egoic relationship to them. Is that kind of it?
I think we can.
Yeah.
We don't have to, but we can.
There's no rule.
There are dreams that I'm working with now that I've been working with for 10 years.
Oh, right, okay.
They're like friends. You know how you deepen like we do. You deepen relationship with people that you meet and encounter, and you might meet them and think, oh, that's a nice person, and then the next time you might have coffee, and the next time you might find out how they feel, and
so it's a relationship.
It's really relational, and working with them through art or sound or the body like recreating dream movements. Even that simple practice of finding a movement that turned up in a dream and then practicing it in waking life will bring something through the body, because the body holds the innate intelligence of the dream that you can't process in any other way apart from through your own muscle, bone, movement, breath. So they have so much to offer if you continue to be in relationship with them.
You've just reminded me of a book I read about lucid dreaming. What are your thoughts on lucid dreaming?
I mean, it's amazing.
Isn't it? Yeah. I mean, because you mentioned that there's actions or physical things, and I was just remembering that actually the way there was some sort of trick or way to do this thing where you kind of look at your hand throughout the day and say, am I dreaming? And you look at your hand, am I dreaming? And you do that throughout your waking day. And then so at night you'll do it again, but you'll look at your hand and you'll have like 6 fingers or something, so you'll know that you're dreaming and that you can suddenly wake up and direct the dream. Yeah.
And has it happened for you? Have you?
I think I've over the years I've had moments of the sort of flying thing, but not flying like it's not never easy. You know what I mean? It's more like someone who's trying to run and flap and just sort of doing big jumps.
Yeah.
And then every now and then it'd be like, oh no, it's working, and then like flying, and then it's sort of then you come back down again. You know, so there's a sense that actually not just like, oh, here I am flying above and da 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 da. It's more like effort. So I'm already interpreting that in my head. It's like, oh yeah, what does that mean?
What does effort say about me? What does flying say about me? But that's okay too, you know. That's the first layer of thinking, isn't it? That's the first layer of curiosity.
Life can a lot of the time feel like I'm just flapping and trying to take off, and then I'm sort of coming back down with a bump, and then trying to flap again.
Yeah. But then what would happen if you kind of amplified that flap in the waking world? And, you know, Arnold Mindell, who wrote Shaman's Body, who's obviously
work.
hugely, world work, process work, hugely into the somatics of dreaming.
Right.
So he would really get you to sort of just flap.
Do that in the waking.
Yeah, flap and amplify,
Feels
and
good.
then see like what is that? What is that bringing into my body? You know.
Yeah. That's interesting actually, because I've been doing a movement thing recently, like sort of more based on Tai Chi, you know, rather than the kind of like HIIT, kind of male linear strength thing. I've kind of got into the Tai Chi thing, and it is much more like waves and much more flappy, feminine kind of. Yeah, so there might be something connected there as well, like sort of how to take off in a different way.
Elders, facing up a storm, striding on the timelines. You only have to look, unabashed and fierce, her heart's an open book. She's here to go, she's here to go, she's here to go. We're here to go, we're here to go, we're here to go. Under the trees, beneath them, and above. That's where you feel the suchness of her love. The trials of life can pass through you like smoke. Get ready, hold on gently, and figure your way home. We're here to go, we're here to go, we're here to go. We're here to go, we're here to go, we're here to go.
I'd be really curious about what would happen if you just do that for 4 days.
It feels good.
Do the dream movement and see.
Yeah.
And Tara Ali, I don't know if you've ever come across his work.
Yeah.
So he's wrote so many things.
The 8 circuits
The 8
thing,
circuit
wasn't it?
brain and angel tech, and
Yeah.
he's got an amazing practice. Again, he didn't invent it, but it's part of his work, where you find a dream movement and you recreate it, and you just practice it throughout the day for a couple of days, and then you pick one from another dream, and then you put them together and you create a sequence of dream movements from your own dreams, and create a
amazing.
dance. It's called the dream body ritual.
Wasn't there a Netflix series that had that?
The OA.
The OA. Yeah, that got cancelled. I was really
That
annoyed
got-
about that. It was such a good series.
Yeah.
That was beautiful, and they all kind of had to find their part of it and repeat it. Oh, it was beautiful.
And then they unlocked
yeah,
imaginal territories,
other dimensions.
which is absolutely the work of dream tech. You know, it's
Oh, why did that get cancelled? Bring back the OA.
too much wisdom.
Too much wisdom.
We can't handle it.
Yeah, let's stick with the rational. Let's stick with Game of Thrones. That's much easier. We're going to kill you, and then we're going to kill you. I don't know, actually. I've just started watching Game of Thrones because someone told me, don't be stupid, watch Game of Thrones. And I was kind of thinking, well, I haven't really got enough time to invest.
Got a long way to go.
There's a long way to go, but actually I just, why is it so popular? And what it must be good. So I'm kind of investigating that at the moment. Anyway, Game of Thrones.
You were wondering about what I thought about lucid dreaming.
Yeah, lucid dreaming, yes.
And,
Excuse me.
And it's something I've experienced a couple of times, and it has, it blew my mind as much as psychedelics. That kind of awakening into the realizing that you're actually dreaming. It was as extraordinary as if it would happen right now in this moment. It's so shocking. I found it so shocking to consciousness.
Really?
And it never lasts very long when I experience it.
So moments of it happening.
Moments of it. And then I had an experience where I was so shocked by waking up, I think I was flying, that I fell out of the dream.
Oh my God.
And I fell into this entirely different space, which was not awake space, nor was it dream space. So it was like a visionless state of consciousness that was completely, the only way I can describe it, was completely empty and completely full. It had everything in it, although I could see and feel nothing. It was extraordinary realm to be in, and I was in there for quite a while.
Like, it sounds, I keep coming to references of films and things, but it's like the Inception, so obvious, isn't it? But there's that place, I can't remember what they call it, right at the end, where they're sort of there. It's like, it sounds kind of like that a little bit.
And there are these territories in dreamings. There's a woman that was doing a study at Glasgow University, I forget her name, and she was looking particularly at experiences of that state, because it happens in meditation, it happens in psychedelic experience, and it can happen in dreaming. So she's looking at the kind of the layers and levels of consciousness that are, and just getting a sense of where, trying to map them in some way.
Fascinating.
And so I read some of the people's experiences that were also part of that study, and it felt so unique to me, that space, but actually
it was shared.
It's a shared space. So lucid dreaming, for me, I think what I find most curious about it, or certainly the thing I've looked at most, is it in the context of dream yoga, who there's a guy called Andrew Holchek, who's a Buddhist teacher, who works with lucid dreaming as preparation for crossing from death into whatever next. So a way of practicing awareness and awakeness.
So very similar to the sort of psychedelic work with psilocybin, death anxiety.
Maybe. I don't know much about that, but it's certainly to so that consciousness doesn't get so shocked as it crosses over.
Right. That's very Buddhist as well, isn't it? Yeah, the sort of Ramdasi thing around like how to let go of being in a tight shoe, rather than kind of like, oh fuck, here we go. And that's I suppose, what does he always talk about? Yeah, like how when Gandhi got shot, and he just fell to the floor going, Ram, and it's sort of that, even in that kind of act of violence, he was sort of so ready and so to let go in that way. Wow. So lucid dreaming for that.
Well, because it can be, obviously it's extraordinarily fun, and you can do anything, and you can go anywhere, and you can fly, and these are kind of the brilliant training, explorative things to be able to do. But much like life, I suppose, the more you practice things like that, and then you can think, and what else? Yeah.
Do you know, I can't remember his name, David something, lives in Santa Cruz, written some books on lucid.
David J.
David J. Brown.
I don't know him, but I know his work.
Wow. Yeah. So I read a few of his books, and he talks about lucid dreaming and how in the dream, because he's got a whole fascination with psychedelics as well, and a whole kind of connection with that, how in a lucid dream you could take acid and trip in your, so you don't actually have to take anything, you just go into the dream, wake up in the dream, take it, have a hallucinate, have an experience like that, and then wake up in the morning, and you've had your, it's just like levels and levels. Amazing.
That is amazing. I've had experience of that, not in a not lucid way. But back to really? Alistair Fruish.
Yeah.
He lent me. He didn't lend me. He gave me a very strong medicine plant, which I don't take psychedelics.
Right.
It's a bit too fast for my consciousness. I can't seem to handle it.
Sounds like
That's
you're doing it anyway in the dream world. Yeah.
But I slept next to this I think it was a datura plant. I slept next to it, and one of the leaves fell off. So I had a chat with the plant before I fell asleep, and I said, "Look, I'm Kate. This is me." I sort of kind of introduced myself to the plant being. I said, if there's anything that you would like to communicate, I'd love to. I'm not going to take you because I'm a bit, I just
sensitive.
That's not my bag.
Yeah.
And I put the leaf under my pillow. And sure enough, I woke up inside the dream and had a psychedelic experience.
Oh my God.
Not a very long one,
Yeah.
but enough to go, oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it, isn't it?
Well,
No,
it's
calm down.
it's a way.
It's a way.
It's
Sorry,
a way.
yes. So definite. That's the way. Excuse me. Well, it's fascinating to talk to you. So we could keep talking about this forever, I'm sure. But so how do people find you? Are you open in that way to
Yeah.
people bringing like their dreams are going to come and find you?
Yeah, if the dreams want to come and find me, I'm at dreamfishingsociety.com.
Something or other. We'll
I
put
think
up a
it's
link.
.com. Yeah.
I'll put a link.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to mention, because we were talking just before we started this interview or chat about some music you've been doing, and I just kind of wanted to put. We've probably heard it by now because I'll be interspersing that throughout this episode.
Time travel.
So yeah, time travel. There we go. So, is there anything to say about that piece of music
Yeah.
that you sent me that is absolutely beautiful?
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. It's quite another big thing, I guess, in your world.
Yeah. So, this is. I haven't written many songs. This is one of mine. I think it's probably my third. And the lyrics from the piece. So the piece is obviously called "Here to Go." And what happened was a really dear friend of ours who you know very well as well, and maybe people that are
Claudia
listening. Claudia Bolton,
Yeah.
Claudia Egypt,
Yeah.
died just about a year and a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of people started to dream of her really close to when she died. She was really super present both in the waking world and in dreaming world. So as I have a deep passion with collective and community dreaming, and she was very much part of our dreaming community as well. We shared dream with her a lot. I wasn't surprised she turned up.
No.
So I gathered the dreams together and just put them in an open source document so that everybody could just read what that experience was, because it was really, she was profoundly present, very visible, very somatically sensing visible. And then I wove some of the words into a poem. So I used the dreamer's words.
Yeah.
And then Lisa Lovebucket, who is part of Toxteth Day of the Dead in Liverpool, put a call out to create any offerings for an album that they're making, and so I made it into a song. And so that song is woven completely from dream words.
Is it?
All the lyrics are from people's dreams of Claude.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'll put a link to that, and also we would have heard some of it throughout the episode, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Something else?
Very good.
Did you like that communication
Yeah,
tool there?
Yeah, you've passed. You get your certificate in advanced communication. Something else? And what else are you thinking?
And why do we say that? We say that because if we say, is there anything else? It's closing down technique,
people
right?
tend to say no. And there is, even if you say anything else, rather, there's something about something else that seems to help people reach into a different realm of their thinking and say, no, there isn't.
There's nothing else.
I think
mean,
I'm all out of dream.
There's quite a lot there, to be honest, and it's been really fascinating to
really
chat to you.
lovely.
Yeah, really love hearing about what you got to, and also just at the end there, there's so much more, isn't there? You've mentioned Toxis Day of the Death and Day of the Dead, and there's a whole other thing to go into there, and there's a whole Damn and Her thing to go into, and maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah, love to.
All right, lots of love.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Dreamer.
You only have to look, unabashed and fierce, her heart's an open book. She's here to go.
Welcome back, and thank you for listening to that episode of me talking with Kate Alderton. I think you'll agree, a pretty interesting conversation. Dream tending, the dream matrix, social dreaming matrix, all really cool stuff. And of course, Kate's song interspersed throughout that. In fact, here she is talking about that song, just to give you a little bit of more information, and there'll be links in the show notes.
So the melody for the song kind of appeared in my, just sort of arrived one day and sort of took up residence in my inner ear. And I don't make music, I don't play an instrument or anything, so I took it to Tim, my partner, Tim Arnold, who is a singer, songwriter and producer of music, and also a music mentor. He's really got a really amazing way of working with where people are at. And he listened, and we started to talk about what the sound might be like, and then he started to create this music and arrangement around the melody that I brought to him, which is, really, there are bits of my dream inside the lyrics, and the music that Tim has made sounds like the landscape of what I dreamed, which is an amazing thing to be able to do, and I really love it. And actually, when we first met, we worked on a project together, his album Constellations, which was a real conversation between dreaming and music. So we had these huge, long talks and really dove into lots of different ways of dreaming together. And then he would go away and write in the night, and then come back and play me the music, and then I would listen to the music and then fall asleep. And then I'd make artwork for the album from the dreams that I had when I was listening to his music. So it's really lovely to return to that conversation together.
A massive thank you to Kate, and also well done to Tim. A beautiful piece of music. Also, I must say that since recording that episode, I have been noticing my dreams a lot more, and I've been writing them down. And I even got a text from my kind of half brother this morning, and he said, "Hey, you were in my dream last night. You were teaching me this you were teaching me this secret meditation technique, like yin yoga thing, by visualizing on a big giant metal statue, and then we went to see it somewhere near Newcastle." I thought, that's cool, man. I'm traveling to other people's dreams now as well as remembering my own. Anyway, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Have a great week. Have a great month. Have a great year. We'll see when the next episode comes out. I'm sure it'll be sooner than a year. But just look after yourselves and spread the love, people. And thanks for listening.